Hi and welcome to Fall Asleep with Henrik. I'm Henrik and you're sleepy, and it is what it is. What happens, happens. And right now, there is nothing we can do. Let's begin. Hi, sleepy. Hi, and welcome back to my humble abode. How's it going? How's it going with that thing you were going to do? You know, that thing. Okay, so big disclaimer here. This is what it's going to be like from now on. If you're new to this podcast, I'm just going to talk and you can do whatever you want with my voice. I will be somewhat incoherent and I will say whatever pops up in my mind. But I can't work magic. This is not a spell. I'm not going to magically put you to sleep. Even if I could, I wouldn't want to do that because, well, what if your circumstances are special and I just, spell you into sleeping? I tend to speak a bit abstractly, and sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, but I'm not ever going to try to be boring, nor am I going to try to be interesting. I just talk. And the whole idea is that you can let go and drift off into the dusk of it all. That's what it's for. Okay, so you've got that thing, sleepy, that takes up quite a bit of room in your life. I imagine there's something that takes up extra space in you. And I sense that there are conflicting feelings. You're carrying at least two feelings about that big thing you're wrestling with. You're wrestling with something and you don't know what to do with it. Is that right? So while I am speaking, there's this heavy rain falling upon my studio, Adventure Wolf. And honestly, regarding your issues, I'm probably talking mostly about myself. It's no secret that I've been going through a particularly ambivalent period in my life. So this is just the general condition in the long train of carriages. That's me. Being human is like being a train, don't you think? Or moving through a train, maybe. You pass through different carriages in various states of repair, and you experience different things in them. And they're all coupled together in more or less perilous ways. But it's still your train, right? The common, denominator is that they all run along the same track, all of the carriages, and it's all pulled by the same engine. And by engine, I mean Luke Skywalker. He pulls you forward, always. Never forget that Luke Skywalker pulls you forward. Luke Skywalker was my hero from age 7 until maybe 15. In hindsight, that's not the longest stretch of time, but when you're that age, it really feels like your whole life. I've had other role models come and gone since then, but I think Luke Skywalker was the first who wasn't my mom or dad. I don't have any memories of liking any particular fictional character before I turned 7. And after that came Tintin, or Tintin in French. I liked him quite a lot. And I like other graphic novels like Spyro and Valerian and Laureline. I really loved them when I was, a teenager. I actually think this sleeping podcast is made up of me lisping. That's just the way it is. No, what I was going to say was that I actually think that Luke Skywalker was my first hero, if I don't count like my mom and dad. Because at some point I can't remember now, but at some point my mom and dad must have been my heroes. Don't you think? Isn't that the case for every living person with a memory of, with a relationship that goes back from like the beginning with your parents? At some point you had to adore them, right? I also had this hero when I was a kid, and that was my dad's uncle, my dad's mother's brother. His name was Yngve. He was my hero. He lived in a small town called Vara. I've briefly spoken about Vara in previous episodes. It's a small one-horse town. And my family and I, we lived like 60 kilometers from him. So it was, is it 60 kilometers? Yeah. So we lived like in another one-horse town called Falun. So we didn't see each other very often. We only met when we traveled there to this peculiar hamlet where he had his small cottage, or the apartment in town that he'd inherited from my grandmother. I was 6 years old when my father's mother died, and her younger brother then, Yngve, took over the apartment. So even though I remember my grandmother living there in this apartment, when I look back, it's always Yngve's apartment in my mind. This apartment, after Yngve died, was sold for 15,000 Swedish kronor. There really must have been something fishy there. I might remember wrong, but I remember reacting to how incredibly cheap that was. A whole apartment for 15,000 kronor. That's like $1,500. Or maybe it was 150,000.